Hey, good morning. It's Monday. It's Memorial Day. So first off, it's remember the those that didn't make it from their time served. Also, a happy birthday to Porter. Happy belated birthday. It was yesterday. Unfortunately, I didn't go live yesterday. I was doing the card show thing down in Rockford, Illinois. So I was on the road. I was actually, man, I was pumped. I woke up at 5:30 yesterday morning. We were dog sitting. So so the dog, our friend's dog Logan, he's quite the character. He's got quite the personality. So he poops in the morning and he poops at night. And he is the most stubborn dog. He will not. He walks you, and he's very slow. He's getting old, so it's not like he's out there. If I take both my dog and Logan out for a walk, it's like this. My dog is like running that way, running ahead of me, and so this arm is outstretched, and then Logan's back here because he's slow and old and just kind of taking his time. So I just take them one at a time. So I had to take him for his morning poop, and it's great because he like walks 3 houses down. It's like very minimal time, does his thing, and then boom, we're going home. My dog just wants to go sniff everything, and it's an ordeal. So I did that. I was running ahead of time, hit Dunkin' Donuts on the way. I was making good time, so I stopped. So I made the number one mistake you don't want to make when you're setting up at a card show. You forgot change. So yesterday was Sunday. So we ordered sushi Saturday night, and I'm going to pick it up. And I drive by the exit to my bank and realize I didn't go to the bank today to get change. So I go pick up the sushi. I come back. I go to the bank to hit the ATM, and there's no ATM. They had 2 stalls for ATMs. Neither of them there's not an ATM there. So instead of just driving around with sushi, I just went home, and I'm like, I'll just hit the bank. I'll hit another ATM in the morning before I go. So I get home and I tell my wife, I'm like, forgot change. And she goes, oh, by the way, there's no ATM at Chase. And I'm like, yeah, I stopped on my way back, and they pulled them both out. So I'm just going to have to find another bank for the ATM tomorrow. So hit another bank. I got my change, but of course it's all 20s. Fortunately, I still had like 10 ones from last week's show. And my wife is always right. I had all this cash, and I'm like, I got to run this to the bank. And my wife's like, why don't you just keep it for the next show? And I'm like, well, it's a month away. I don't want all this cash laying around. I hate cash. I never carry cash. So I'm like, I just don't want to stuff it away. I hate having cash. So at that time, I didn't know I was doing a card show 1 week later. Like, had I known I'm going to do this Rockford show, I would have just skipped the bank and had the cash for a week. Zach is out on the lawnmower. Awesome. You have a lot more. Zach's an early bird. So, I am not, I'm an early bird, but I'm not that, what's the word I'm looking for? Motivated to mow at 9 a.m. So I got cash, and then I'm like, now I need to break these 20s to get to get change. So I have the 10 ones. Now I've got a bunch of 20s. I hit Dunkin' Donuts, gave them a 20, and I'm like, oh, and there was nobody behind me in line. So I'm like, oh, hey, by the way, can I get 4 5s for 20? They're like, yeah, sure. So now I have some 5s, had a 10 from the change. And then I was making good time. So there's a rest area on the interstate on my way. So I'm like, oh, I'm gonna stop there, get a bottle of water from the vending machine. Whoops. They they only give you change in change in quarters. So it was good. I got a bottle of water, but I got $3.50 in quarters. So which I didn't use this time. So the first show I did, I didn't have any change on me. And of course I have like 2 or 3 customers that only wanted to buy 1 or 2 cards. Normally I would have just said just have them, but I had other customers at the table, and that's just kind of poor form. Okay, this guy's getting free cards and I'm not. So so I had to go track down some quarters. And then I planned on, okay, what if I have this next time? So I brought change. Didn't have any of that. Yesterday's show didn't have any of that. So Ken says no show tonight. Okay, that is noted. That's good because I won't be. We're grilling out at my mother-in-law's tonight, so I would not be around tonight. So then I went to, there was a Casey's. I should have just got some breakfast pizza. There was a Casey's across the street from where the show is in Rockford. So I bought a couple bottles of water. I also didn't bring any bottles of water. So being like early was great because I was running like really early. So I'm like, I just kind of dawdle around, get a couple of bottles of water, got more change. I was good to go. And then I checked into the card show. And so one of the vendors, his name is Mark. He's from around here in Madison. He reached out to me and he's like, hey, I heard you're doing the show in Rockford. He's like, do you have any information? I think me and the kids will go down and set up a table. So Mark actually set up, there was a table right next to mine. So it was awesome. So Mark was right next to me. Jason reached out to me, and he's the one that kind of put me in contact with this show. So he was set up right across from me and actually added, he was the first, it was the first Cubs cards that I got that I updated the cardometer behind me. So that's cool because my old cardometer, I just had like stickers to put on, and it just wasn't easy to update the cardometer. But now I've got this, and I need to bring an eraser or get like a marker with an eraser on the bottom. So I was able to update it after Jason's 165 Cubs card. So that was cool. So he was right across from me. And then another guy that sets up in my show, I didn't know he was going to be there. His name's Scott. He's from the Chicago area. He was set up there too. So it was really cool. Knew a lot of the other vendors just from my show, from Twitter. And then I met a couple other vendors that were interested in my show next month, June 26th. So I was able to network with some other dealers, with some customers. Actually, one guy who was digging through and bought a bunch of quarter cards from me, he actually lives just outside of Madison. And he's like, oh, like he's like, because I was telling him about our show, and he's like, well, how come I didn't go? And he's like, oh, I was out of state. So he's like, yeah, I'm definitely coming to the June show. And then so there was another vintage guy who had some amazing vintage and amazing slabs. He actually said he was going to reach out to set up at our May show, but he was doing a show, I think, in Ames, Iowa. He's from Iowa. So that was awesome just to meet some of the people I talked to. At the end, I was able to chat with John, the promoter, quite a bit. So we're going to it's almost like a talent exchange. So we're going to kind of like, because the Rockford area has a lot of like the Illinois collectors, Northern Illinois collectors, Chicago. We've had a couple of vendors from like the Chicago area, but a lot of our guys are from Wisconsin. So we can have that little, and it's his first show that he did. So he's getting his feet wet. We've only done 2. So great relationship. So really awesome. Like, it was better. The show yesterday was better for me from a networking marketing standpoint than it was for like actual sales. However, I did make more sales dollar wise than I did at my show last week. I don't think I'm going to talk in depth about that today, because it's more along the lines of like quarter boxes. And it's something, Ken, along the lines that you mentioned last week after my show in Madison, and overwhelming aspect. I looked back at my sales from, because I track every sale, and I looked back, and I think you're totally on the mark with that. And now I have data, 2 shows of data to prove that point, basically. So I'll maybe tomorrow, I'll dive deeper into like the quarter box strategy. And now after yesterday, I have an even. I'm changing up my strategy more for my show next month, based on just now I have 3 shows under my belt with the quarter boxes, and I kind of know what I have a better idea. And I'm going to switch things up a little bit for next month's show. So I'll go in more in depth tomorrow. By the way, tomorrow, I'm back in the office tomorrow. So the plan is to go mornings at 6:45. However, tomorrow I have to go in early because a lot of my equipment is at home. So I've got to like set up my workstation. So I probably won't do a live show tomorrow morning, just because it's going to be super early. Because I've got to run out like probably 30 minutes ahead of time tomorrow morning. So I think tomorrow I'm going to do a primetime show. So Tuesday night, I'll go live in primetime. And maybe, and guys, let me know, because Herman mentioned another thing in chat here about the $20 boxes on the table. That's that's an idea I stole from the Wisconsin Dell show. So that's another thing that I saw that really worked. So I can talk about that. So if you guys, if you want to join live, let me know in chat here. Drop a line if you would rather, if you're interested in hearing more about the quarter box strategy, if you would rather have me go live and talk about that tomorrow night, Tuesday night, or Wednesday morning at 6:45. So just let me know if you're interested in just kind of bouncing ideas and doing live, if you'd prefer Tuesday night or Wednesday morning, or another time. We can even talk about it on Ken and Herman's show on Monday, or during a hobby roundtable, our next hobby roundtable. So just let me know. And so what I wanted to get into was the what's the word I'm looking for? The temp of the room. So it was very interesting. It was very eye-opening. Okay, here's the first thing I noticed. It was May 30th. I have never seen so many football jerseys in a room. Football jerseys. Okay. I thought I missed a memo on wearing my Bears jersey to this show. Like, every vendor had a Bears jersey on. It was May 30th. I couldn't believe it. Like, is there like a Bears convention going on? Like, what is going on? Like, I mean, literally half the vendors were wearing Bears jerseys or a Bears shirt. Mostly jerseys. There was a Devin Hester jersey. There was a Khalil Mack jersey. There was a Peyton jersey. Actually, 2 or 3 Peyton jerseys. Might have been 2 Khalil Mack jerseys. Those are just off the top of my head. I couldn't believe it. Okay, so football is going up. So here's the state of the hobby, and I'm kind of glad this all like worked out with what I noticed at this show yesterday, and what Brian Gray, Leaf CEO, tweeted last night. Like, literally 12 hours ago, Brian Gray tweeted basically the opposite sentiments that I'm about to talk about. And before I go further into my feelings, and this is just kind of, this is what I'm feeling. I don't have I do have numbers to back it up, but I don't have them written on a sheet in front of me. I do have numbers, eBay sales numbers. My numbers are just kind of wonky at card shows, based on what I sell. So it's just basically, it's the overall sentiment in what I'm seeing at the show. I've been to a card show 3 consecutive weeks now. Wisconsin Dells, Madison, Rockford. And actually 4 out of the last 6 weekends I've done a card show, because then going back to April was my Madison show. So just the overall sentiment, what I'm very observant with people and like kind of getting an idea of what's kind of going on. So I pay like close attention to things like that. And yesterday's show was like the opposite of our show. And what I mean by that is vendors, customers, and just the room. It was very interesting. And so our first 2 shows, April and May, have been just absolutely jam-packed the first 90 minutes to 2 hours. Show open, and it's just a flood. And then, so we open the doors at like 9, and we actually have people come in at like 8:45. So from like 9 to 11, let's just say 2 hours, 9 to 11, our show is just boom, super busy. I mean, it's so busy that one of my guys, he basically packs up at noon, because at noon it dies. But we're on Saturday. So what do you do on Saturdays? And I thought about this myself. A lot of my like activity on Saturday is done in the morning. And then the afternoon, I'm just I'm back at home, because I've gone out, I've done the post office run, I've gotten groceries for grilling out or whatever. Maybe I've run to Menards to get soil for the garden. And then in the afternoon, I'm back home. I'm doing yard work. I'm mowing. I'm tending the garden. I'm doing whatever around the house in the afternoon on Sunday. But my commerce activity is in the morning on Saturdays. What am I doing on Sunday? Sunday, I'm sleeping in. I'm drinking my coffee. And then in the afternoon, I'm taking it slow in the mornings. And then in the afternoon, then I go out and do whatever. Usually Sundays, I'm homebound doing stuff. Sometimes I'll mow, but I'm really not going out and shopping on Sundays. And that's why I wanted to create a Saturday show here in Madison, because our other show is on Sundays, and it doesn't fit for me. So the reason that Johnny and I created this show was we wanted to kind of form it into what we're looking for in a card show, and how we would, do a card show as a consumer. So with that in mind, our Saturday show, 9 to 11, super busy. The Sunday show I did yesterday in Rockford, I didn't make a sale. So the doors opened here at 10. I didn't make a sale until like 11:15. I didn't make a dime until 11:15. I don't think I broke even with my table cost until like 1 o'clock. So the first 2 hours in Rockford, 10 to noon, was pretty slow for me. Now by like 11:30, it started to pick up with traffic, and there was traffic early on. Like it was a flood out of the gate, but it was a lot of like window shoppers. There wasn't much cash being thrown around early on, and then finally people kind of started buying. And we saw like and Mark was next to me, and he kind of sensed the same thing. And early on, he's like, "Man, I haven't even broke even yet." Or I think he broke even like early on. Like he paid for his table like with one transaction within like the hour, and then didn't have anything. And then it picked up in the afternoon. It was like the opposite. Like it was the first 2 hours were slow, and then it picked up. And I think that's the Saturday, Sunday difference. I think your Saturday shows, you're going to see more action in the morning, less action in the afternoon. And then Sunday is going to be kind of vice versa, where you're going to get a slow trickle in the morning, and then the afternoon is going to be busier than the morning. So I think that's just a Saturday versus Sunday. Now, the overall sentiment to the room, and I heard this by like almost every vendor, was nobody's buying, and everybody wants to sell, meaning attendance. There were a lot of people bringing cards to sell, like off the street, non-vendors, like customers coming in, they're the Pelican cases and, and all that. Herman, that's also, yes, that's what I was, my wife and I were talking about it last night. And I said, another thing is, you've got, people are going to church on Sunday mornings. And it's the after church crowd. So when I worked in high school at the grocery store, our Sunday mornings were super slow because everybody was at church. And then at, 9 o'clock service got over, 10 o'clock service gets over. And then all of a sudden right at 10:05, is a small town. So it's like a block away from, actually one church is 2 blocks. One church is 1 block. So at 10:05 and 11:05, you get the church rush. So yeah, I think you're spot on with the Sunday after church crowd. So, a lot of people were coming in, and here's the good thing. Here's the positive, about quarter boxes. I have 3 tables of quarter boxes, 16 boxes. Not too many are stopping by my table, putting slabs down. Are you buying? Because I've got I'm the bargain box guy. Now, all my other stuff, and I don't do slabs, but like autos and, chrome autos and stuff, those are all in my eBay store. And I don't take those to shows because then I've got to take them off eBay or, cross-check. And it's a pain. I have my card show stuff because it's just, they're boxes. I don't have to do anything with them. In fact, the boxes, I'm not bringing them in because I'm still in the middle of reorganizing this card room, which is giving me anxiety. That's like what I'm going to be doing today. I've really got to get this room cleaned up. It's like I feel like I've spent a week on it and I've done absolutely zero progress, but I digress. What's up, Matthew? Good morning, Tom. Sunday isn't a good card show day when we have church service in the morning. Yep. So yeah, people aren't dropping slabs on my table because they see, oh, he's only selling 25-cent cards. He's not a buyer. I bought 2 slabs. My first show in April, I bought 2 Cubs cards and they were both in slabs. My last show, I think I bought 2 slabs. So I am a buyer. If it's Cubs, and I'll say, if I do every once in a while get somebody that, hey, are you buying? Like yesterday I had a few, and it's like only Cubs. Like I'm not going to buy, Tatis or Acuna. There were some fire slabs. Most of them. So Jason was set up across from me and he had nicer stuff. So they were hitting him up. And, so there was a Chris Bryant, Ryan Sandberg, I don't know, triple threat. It was one of those like high end. It was a 1 of 1, dual auto Bryant and Sandberg. And I'm like, wow. He didn't know it's a 1 of 1. So how do you price it? I think he mentioned like 800. Which I think is a fair price. I don't know the market. It's not something I would buy, but seemed fair. I did have somebody, they directed any Cubs stuff they directed to me. There was an Ed Howard, I think numbered to 71, chrome auto, but it was first chrome auto, but it was raw. Something like that high end. Like he wanted 400. And it's like, I've got other cards on my want list before Ed Howard. And then I think of Cubs prospects from the past. And it's like, there's no way in hell I'm spending $400 on a first chrome auto of a 19-year-old kid. I just can't do that. So that was a nice card. It was tempting, but it's like, no. So I only bought 1 card. I'm sorry. I'm rambling all over the place this morning. I have so many thoughts coming through, and it's like, once I say something, it's like, oh yeah, squirrel. But since I'm talking about buying, I only bought 1 thing yesterday. I only spent $5. It was the deal of the day. If you saw it on Twitter. So, a kid, he was probably a younger guy, maybe 18, 20, like somewhere in that range. The older I get, the less I can age people. So he came by, he saw my Cubs cardometer sign, and he's like, "Hey, I've got this. It's an Ernie Banks auto." So these were from Nabisco in 1993, and there was a bunch of like Hall of Fame autos. Willie Stargell, Harmon Killebrew, I think Bob Gibson. There was a whole bunch of them, and it comes with like a Nabisco certificate of authenticity. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I think I do have one of these. I think somebody traded me one of these, but it's an Ernie Banks auto, and it's awesome. So I'm like, hey, that's, what are you looking for? And he's like, oh, you can have it. And I'm like, I can have it. I'm like, no, I've got to give you something. And he's like, no, he's like, it belongs in a collection like yours. And I'm like, wow, that okay. I'm like, but I don't feel right about getting an Ernie Banks autograph for nothing. So I'm like, do you want to look through, like, I mean, take whatever you want out of my quarter boxes. Dig through the boxes if you want, or, I want to give you cash. He's like, I don't know, like $5, but I just want to give it to you. I'm like, well, I'm going to give you $5, but if there's anything in these boxes, like, just take it. And he didn't. He's like, okay, I don't want the $5, but thank you. So, like, how freaking awesome. $5 for an Ernie Banks autograph. So that was cool. That was the deal of the day. So there were Mark, the vintage guy, he had a couple slabs that I was really eyeing up and down. I didn't pull the trigger because the main reason I didn't pull the trigger was I was bidding on one of the cards on my most wanted list, which I should have shown off because I think my Glaber came in and I didn't show it off. So I'll show it off tomorrow. But one of the cards on my most wanted Cubs list, I was bidding on, and I put a high bid in, like, at the card show. I was showing Mark, my co-promoter Johnny came down. So I was showing him, and like, here's the price. I bid up to whatever, and then the auction ended last night. So I'm like, I would pay more. So I'm just here's how I eBay. I just put in, this is what I'm gonna pay, and if somebody wants to come snipe me and it sells for $1 more, tough for me. Yeah, it stinks that, maybe I lost out by $1, but who knows what the other, because that other bidder, say it's, we'll just use a round number, $100. Say, okay, $100 is the max I'm going to pay for this card. So that's, it may be 2 days until the auction ends. I don't get into sniping. So I'm going to bid max $100. That's my max. I don't want to spend more than $100 on this card, because if I get into the sniping game and the auction game, I've been there. You get that adrenaline going, and all of a sudden you're in a bidding war, and $100 turns into $150, and then it's like, oh, I didn't want to spend $150 on this. So put in my max bid. No matter, when I see it, I want it. This is what I'm going to pay. Let the auction ride. So I did raise my bid price, and it's like, okay, this is, and what my high bid was, it's probably worth more. But at this time, I already bought, like in the last week, I bought the Javi AP, I bought the Glaber, and I bought another card that hasn't arrived yet. So I'll show that off when it comes, from my wanted list. And it's like, I'm not going to overspend. I've spent way too much. So cut it off. Here's what I'm willing to pay. And of course, it sells for like $2 more than my high bid or whatever it ended up being. But you know what? I'm okay with that, because now looking back, it's like, man, did I really want to spend that much on this card? So I think I'm okay, and I'll keep an eye on this particular card. And maybe another one comes up and I can get it for even less than what I was willing to pay. Who knows? But I'm okay with it. So that's one of the reasons why I didn't buy a couple of the slabs, because then it's like, okay, I've already bought this and this, I've got this at auction. I need to, I bought at my show last week. I was in the Dells 2 weeks ago. It's time to just focus on some sales. So I'm going to circle back to the whole sales, and a lot of the comments from vendors was nobody's buying. And they're like, everybody just wants the bargain boxes, which is good for me, but I didn't do as well. I was hoping that I'd get some more bites on people wanting a whole box, like a whole monster box. And I had pricing in mind. And so I think the other day I said, as a seller of the quarter boxes, I make the buyer give me an offer. But as a buyer, when I'm looking at bargain boxes, I make the seller give me a number before I, counter or walk away. So I had a guy, actually the guy that was flipping through his basketball. So I know for my next show, I'm going to bring more basketball. I'm going to bring more football. Football and basketball were way hotter in the bargain boxes yesterday than baseball. And I had 16 boxes total. I think 10 of the 16 were baseball, and everybody was around football and basketball. And I think I had 2 basketball boxes and 2 football boxes. So I'm going to have to dig out more football and basketball if I have the time before our June 26th show. So he was digging through the basketball, and he's like, so what, so I told him, he's like, do you sell these boxes whole? He was just kind of picking my brain, how do you get the inventory and all that? So, and I said, I don't look to sell, because in the winter, when I have more time, I can dig through here and I can pull a bunch of cards and I can sell them online for $3, $4, $5. So I kind of, I have an idea of what's in here. So, there's definitely a bulk discount that will apply. So here's, so that's kind of how I go. And then he circled back to the same question and asked it differently. So I like his approach. And he goes, so if you were to sell a box, how much? And I gave him a number, and the number's not, so the number was, it is a discount, but it's not like a 10-cent a card discount. So it probably would have came out between 15 and 20 cents. So you buy the boxes and you get them for basically 20 cents. So, in bulk, I don't want to give a deep discount on whole boxes, because I know what's in there. And, anybody, especially if they're looking to resell, and I think he was more of a collector than, he wasn't looking to flip. So, that's kind of, I don't want to offer, I'm not, yes, I'm selling, but I don't need to sell in bulk just to sell. So that's kind of my approach. And he didn't counter, he didn't, he just asked, and I threw out a number, and I would have came down from that number. Okay. So here's the reason why in the negotiation, and it wasn't a negotiation, it was conversation. But here's why I didn't push the fact. I would have taken, I would have sold it for less, but he was still looking, and he didn't counter. And I don't want to show my hand and, I offer X number, he doesn't counter. He doesn't make a decision on that. He could be thinking about it. He can be still, he was still actively looking through the cards, and he can be dialing up, okay, this is worth this, and this. Maybe the number that Bo gave is a good number, and I'll buy it 400. So it's all that psychology. So I didn't push it, and he didn't ask again. And, at the end of the day, maybe he comes back and he comes to my June show and he buys, another, small box. So, just the way it goes sometimes. So I wanted to get into the state of the hobby and the sentiment in the room. So people were buying, looking for bargains. A lot of people were bringing slabs and looking to sell. So the grand sentiment was from buyers, because I knew a couple of the guys that brought stuff in to move. People were bringing stuff in off the street to sell or trade. And they weren't buying from vendors. Vendors weren't buying from the people off the street, and were hesitant to trade. Now there was a pretty big trade that went down, and I think it was like a $15,000 in value trade. So there were trades that went down, but overall, it was just kind of, it was almost like everybody was rushing to sell. It was like no, hesitant was the word. Hesitant in the hobby. The that's kind of, that's what I walked away with. Where is the state of the hobby right now? And yes, there's no solid, there's no data, there's no analytics to back this up. This is just my general sentiment over the last 3 weeks of being around collectors, being around buyers, being around sellers, taking the temperature of the room. There's a lot of hesitancy on buying in these card shows. People are looking to move, sell cards, trade cards on speculation that the card I'm, this is just me going out on a limb here. I'm speculating that the card I have may not increase in value. I'm not going to say drop. I'm going to say may not increase in value, but the card I'm targeting, I speculate may rise. So I'm not saying there's a dip in the hobby. I think there is. Well, I know there is based on numbers. I mean, there are, just look around, look at your own sales. Sales are down. Is it an algorithm on eBay? I think that's part of it. But now I'm starting to believe, because now I'm gaining more traffic on eBay, but the sales aren't. And I had a terrible May in sales on eBay. And I think part of it was, I think the search is off on eBay. I think that's kind of been, determined. And my, not only are my sales down, but my, expenses are up because I bought a bunch of Bowman, and yeah, I'm flipping. I keep the Cubs and I flip everything else. So if you take those Bowman out of the sales, because I bought those, my sales are even less. Like, so my net sales, because I have the expense of, okay, I bought 3 hobby boxes. I bought 10 now I'm up to 16 blaster boxes that I've ripped and listed on eBay, and I have some more coming. I have 3 retail boxes that they finally moved yesterday, today. So they're supposed to be delivered tomorrow. So I've got a lot of overhead on the Bowman that are selling on eBay, but it's not, and we all know that ripping and flipping, it's a gamble. But we're seeing those prices come down, where in the past it's been, you rip a blaster and you're gonna, you rip the blaster or you flip the blaster and you're coming out ahead. Now it's not the case. Now I am dealing in baseball, not in football or basketball. I think those are different stories. Those are hot. Baseball, I was wrong. I thought baseball was going to be as hot as what we saw basketball last year, and that has not been the case. Baseball has actually dipped further than what I expected. Basketball has dipped, which is, I mean, basketball 2 years ago, even a year and a half ago, right before COVID. So before the big boom, basketball was hotter before the boom than it is right now. And that's with low end and high end. Like, and the only cards in basketball that I've kind of been following, like John Morant and Michael Jordan rookies. By the way, there was a Beckett 9 Jordan walking around yesterday. Like, that's like probably a $20,000 to $25,000 card, right? It's Beckett, so it's going to be a little less than the PSA, but that's probably a 20 grand. 20 grand. And he was a kid. I say kid, but he was probably in his early 20s, walking around with 20 grand in his hand in a Michael Jordan rookie slab, Beckett 9. I'll have to look up just to see. I'm curious now. But the Jordan prices have gone down. You look just 3 months ago, and I don't know what the prices were a year ago, like after The Last Dance and all that hype. But I know those prices have come down quite a bit. Now, on the other side, there's other stuff. And so if you go back, and I dropped this earlier, that there was some good conversation on Twitter last night, started by Brian Gray, Leaf CEO, about, and I'll bring this up, and I think Ivan brought up, there's still a lot of spending going on. It's just in different areas. And I think that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a shift. I think there's a dip. I'm going to say there's a dip right now. I'm not going to say, I don't like some of the buzzwords, correction or crash. I think there's a dip, and I guess that's a buzzword too. But so Brian's tweet was, I don't get the Chicken Littles out there. They plan when prices go straight up, and they cry and panic when things go on sale. I am starting to commit money to some of the panic-stricken assets. I am confident this, quote, sale won't last as long as some naysayers think. So I agree and I disagree with that comment. I think that the sale, and I've been using the term dip. I think there's a certain dip going on, and I think even Ken mentioned this a few weeks back, talking about seeing a shift where eventually when things settle, there's going to be people are going to be chasing this, and not like basically in the last year and a half, people have been chasing everything. And I had a lot of success moving junk air Greg Jeffrey. I was selling Greg Jeffrey's rookie cards because there was nostalgia coming back. People were coming back because they were stuck at home with COVID, not with the actual COVID, but because of the everything being closed. So they're stuck at home. So they're like, oh, I'm going to go bring out my binder. Oh, hey, remember Greg Jeffries and Sam Horn and Kevin Elster and Greg Briley? I had these cards. And even though you can buy them, there's probably 3,000 1989 Topps Greg Jeffries listed on Sport Lots for 18 cents. A lot of people in the hobby don't even know about Sport Lots, let alone John Smith sitting on his couch who hasn't bought a baseball card in 30 years, sees his old collection, and he's like, I need that Future Stars Greg Jeffries just for nostalgia. Where are you going to go? Where do most non-collectors have no idea what ComC is. They have no idea what Sport Lots is. They have no idea what the blowout forums. They don't really know Twitter hobby Twitter. So where are they going to go? If I see something, like there's two places I go, Amazon and eBay. And, a 40-year-old dude that hasn't collected in 25 years, probably going to hit up eBay because I know eBay has baseball cards. And wow, I can get a Greg Jeffries Future Stars card for 99 cents, free shipping, at Bo's eBay store. And that's a deal for them. That they think that's a deal. Now we in the hobby think that's crazy. Who would spend $1 on a 1989 Topps Greg Jeffries? There's probably 300 throughout this card room. But they don't know. They're not in the hobby. We're in the hobby like every day. Like we're in the trenches. Like we know all the hot spots. We can probably find somebody to sell us 50 Greg Jeffries cards for $1. And John Smith, who just wants one for his collection, hey, I'm going to spend 99 cents in this eBay store. So I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Herman says, are prices down because the Jordan rookies have come out of the woodwork since that first sale? I think so. I think there's more coming out of the woodwork. So here's my opinion. The Last Dance coincided with the beginning of COVID lockdown, quarantine, whatever you may call it. So it was the perfect storm. Prices go up. Oh my God. I even had basketball card nostalgia when The Last Dance came out because it was fueled by, oh, hey, people are buying Bulls cards. I was selling BJ Armstrong cards. Everything was selling. So, hey, I'm going to take advantage of this. I'm going to start looking through my basketball cards. And that's how I got back into basketball. And I still kind of follow it much more than I did 2 years ago because of the hype behind The Last Dance. And all of a sudden, everybody else sees that. And now there's Jordan. Everybody wants Jordans. And then people start to take notice and they start selling. And I mentioned, so the local card shop as a kid, the owner reached out to me just last week and he's like, hey, I've got a Jordan rookie. I'm looking to move. Do you know any buyers? And, is it because there's the spike, but it's also that spike has dropped considerably in the last 3 months. Is he looking to, and we didn't have a conversation about it. It was just a couple messages back and forth, so I don't know what his motivation is to sell now. Is it because there was a peak? And okay, so I trade stocks and for fun, basically. It's I used to spend this money on sports betting, and I was like, I kept funneling money into my sports account because I'm a terrible sports bettor. So I decided I'm just going to dabble into stocks, and my portfolio keeps going up and up and up. And when a stock goes up and up and up, it's almost like a FOMO, like I want to buy more, but you have to kind of hold yourself back because it's going up, and it's hard to not get caught up into that rise. And so I think the Jordan rookies, people had that sentiment where it's like, it's going up. I'm going to ride this. And it keeps breaking through. I think it's going to top out here, and okay, I'm going to sell when it gets to here. And you just keep riding the storm. But then when it falls, it's almost like panic sets in. And, is that the case where it's like, okay, this Jordan 9 sold for $50K last, in March. Now it's only selling for $30K or $25K. It's like, how far, where's the bottom? I want to jump out now. So you're riding the highs, and now the lows, how low is it going to go? Okay, I'm going to jump out now because it's still a good price. So I think there's a case of, with the Jordans, that's kind of where we're at, because like Herman mentioned, all of a sudden the prices keep rising, and people are like, hey, I want to sell. And then now there's just a glut, and it's like, okay, now there's more supply than there is demand. And I think you're spot on with that. So I think there's a dip. There's money moving in other directions. So now, while the Jordans are dropping, look at that Wayne Gretzky rookie that sold for like a record. It like smashed all records. I think it sold for like $3.75 million. Now known as the Zimmer effect. So the Gretzky like shattered. So we're still seeing these record sales. But I don't think any of us have a $3.75 million Wayne Gretzky rookie in our collection. We don't have a high grade Jordan rookie, although there's probably more of those Jordans out there. But and they're, I guess I say high end, like the $1 million plus. We're still seeing the $1 million plus sales, and we're still seeing some record set. But I don't think any of us here are in that demographic. We're not chasing the $1 million sales. So while yes, there's still a record amount of money into the hobby, where's that money coming from? That money is coming from the Brian Grays, who can take $500,000 cash to a card show. I don't want to take $5,000 cash to a card show. And my wife certainly doesn't want me to take $5,000 to a card show. So, maybe I'm a Chicken Little. I'm definitely not a Brian Gray. So it's kind of one of those things where, yeah, there's still a lot of money being poured into the hobby, but who's pouring that money in? Brian Gray and Wayne Gretzky. I didn't know he was a collector. It's being poured in by these millionaires and people with a lot of money, like the Chicken Littles, like I'm going to call myself a Chicken Little because I'm not flashing. I mean, I'm not carrying around a $20,000 Michael Jordan rookie card. I've got 16 25-cent boxes. I'm carding around a 1989 Topps Greg Jeffries Future Stars card. So I'm a Chicken Little. And a lot of it in most of the hobby is made up of Chicken Littles. The 1%ers are funneling that money, and they're setting these records. So yeah, There's a lot of money coming into the hobby, more than ever before, but where's that money coming from? It's not coming from the Chicken Littles. It's coming from these these deep pockets. They're bringing in that money. And while, yes, overall, hey, the hobby is great, it's only coming from a 1% of the population. Where's that 99% where all of that 1% is focused on these cards? What are the other cards doing? What are the 99% of the Chicken Little cards doing? They're dropping. Nobody's buying. There's a dip in the hobby. There's a big dip, and I noticed it yesterday. There was a lot of hesitancy in the hobby. There was a lot more sellers than buyers, and there was a lot more. There was more sellers walking in the door as customers than there were buyers walking through the door as customers. Now, this is just one small blip of a card show in Illinois. Take it with a grain of salt, but I think you can get a sense. I think if you go to any show, if you go to Spartanburg, South Carolina, where Herman was, I'm not going to say Dallas because that's where the big hitters are. They're going to Dallas. If you come to Madison, Wisconsin, if you go to Peoria, Illinois, I think you're gonna get kind of a sense of. And guess what? Tom Gibson is in Peoria. There's an old saying, will it play in Peoria? Rockford is very similar in scope of Peoria, Illinois. Will it play in Peoria? And you're going to get a much better gauge of the overall hobby in Peoria, Illinois, and in Rockford, Illinois, because that's where a large percent of the hobby and like people are going to be. They're going to be at a card show at the River Center in Peoria. They're going to be at the Forest Hills Lodge in Rockford, where you get blinded by all the money in Dallas. Oh, the hobby is booming. Look at this Mike Trout for Justin Herbert trade. Slabs are flying everywhere because it's Dallas. It's the National. All of these big shows, that's where the heavy hitters are going. They're not going to Rockford. They're not going to Peoria. But 99% of the hobby is going to places like Peoria and like Rockford. So will it play in Peoria? We can get a better sense of the overall scope and state of the hobby in places like Peoria and Rockford. Herman said, I heard the same thing was going on in Dallas too. And how many of those big pockets are playing with borrowed money? That's another, like, you see a lot of these, they're coming in and they've got financial backing by, whether it's millionaire athletes or companies, startups, who knows? I'm not here to say the state of the hobby is, oh my God, panic. And I think somebody in that thread, it's a great read on Brian's Twitter. But I disagree with a lot of that because what we're seeing with the numbers. And I think I even watched the breaks even said, meanwhile, money continues to be spent across a wide swath of wax, new products and players outperforming expectations. But where's it coming from? And where is that money being spent? Herman says, if Ken is in the chat, can we talk about that 10-gallon hat he was wearing? I saw that. That was spicy. Ken looking spicy with the button down. And somebody said it's not button down. It's what do they call that? The pearl snaps. Ken was looking spicy in pearl snaps in a 10-gallon hat. So that's kind of where I'm at with the state of the hobby. I think there's and I think somebody used the term softening. Yeah. Sports Card Shop at Moco in that thread said a softening. That ain't 10-gallon. So there's a softening in the hobby. There's a dip. I think there's, I think some people in the hobby, there's a little bit of a panic. I know I would be in a bit of a panic if I was a buyer 6 months ago, 4 months ago, because we've seen prices dip on stuff. And I took some gambles on some slabs, like those Tatis slabs, and Tatis is doing awesome. And guess what? I can't move it. I moved 3 of the cards for a little more than what I paid for. Made a slim profit on 3 of the 4 cards. The 4th card, which was, the bigger of the 4, the biggest of the 4, was this. It's a second-year Gold Cup purple refractor, numbered to 299. And, I speculated that, because I thought, and I mentioned this earlier, I was wrong about baseball being super hot, and it hasn't been. And right now, I would take a loss. If I sold that right now with Tatis being super hot, I would take a loss. And when I bought it, the comps, it was right around comps. I think one had sold for like $50 or $75 higher than what I paid, and one had sold for like $25 lower than what I paid. And I probably, if I put it on eBay for what I paid for it, it may sell, may not. So that's kind of, it was a fun experiment to just kind of gamble with it and speculate that, hey, maybe I can make, a little bit of money on this. Right now I take a loss. So I've gone almost an hour, but it was fun talking about, I learned more about doing this show, and I don't know why that is. I'm trying to figure out, why did I take away more from this show yesterday than what I took away from our show in Madison last week, or even the Wisconsin Dells. The Dells, I can tell you why I didn't have a better grasp, because I was like 100% buy mode. Like, I'm digging through. I was tunnel vision in the Dells. I was tunnel vision digging through bargain boxes. My show last week, I talked to all the vendors, and I kind of get a good gauge, but it was a much different, show than what we did yesterday. And, yesterday, there was more talk. There was more talk yesterday about, it was just interesting. There was the vendors that we had last week, more were buying, but not many were buying yesterday. So maybe that's why. Maybe the clientele to vendor ratio just didn't jive. I don't know. It was telling. It was telling, and it was I think I used the term with Herman last night on Twitter. It was eye-opening, and it was very eye-opening. And I'm glad that I saw the tweets from Brian Gray, and what he's saying. And he's in a different demographic. I mean, he's in a different tax bracket than we are. He's laying out cash, and he can take those gambles, and he can speculate with hundreds of thousands of dollars. And, I can only speculate with a few hundred George Washingtons. And Nate just likes to call me out because I'm not a Texas native, but I'm here by choice. You have to be from Texas to wear a cowboy hat. So that's what I had for today. So I'm going to touch on my court. So here's the plan. So I'm going to touch on my quarterback strategy. That's a question. So I'm going to touch on my quarterback strategy and some of the things, and I'm going to write this on my whiteboard. I'm going to hit on that tomorrow night. I think I'm going to go live tomorrow night. And I'm going to talk about the quarterback strategy, and then we can all, so if you can join me, awesome, tomorrow night. I don't know what time. It'll be, I don't know, probably between 7 and 8 p.m. Central Time. It just kind of depends. So I'm going to touch on that tomorrow night. And then, Herman, I think in a few weeks, where did you say, when's our next, June 19th is our next hobby roundtable. We can add that to our roundtable discussion. So, I learned a lot about, I've learned a lot about quarterback strategy in the last couple of weeks, and it's interesting. And now I have numbers to back up some things. So it's going to be fun. So I'm going to share that tomorrow night here on Hobby Evolution. And then we can talk more, and we can have like a conversation about it on June 19th on Herman's channel, 3B Collection for Hobby Roundtable. Ken said I was referring to the fact I didn't call out pearl snaps. You have to have been on a horse in the last month to wear a cowboy hat. I don't think I've ever ridden a horse. I think maybe the closest thing I've done to ridden a horse, I probably rode a pony at like a circus or a town festival. I rode an elephant at a circus. I do remember that. I don't think I've ever ridden a horse, like a big, like a regular horse. I don't know what you call it. What do you call a regular horse? I fed horses. I've milked cows, and I grew up in like rural Midwest, rural Illinois. Like half my friends lived on farms and woke up with the chickens and did all that stuff. You call a horse, of course. I love that hat at the beach. Good coverage from the sun. So that's what I had for today. You call a hat, not a cowboy hat. So thanks for tuning in. Great stuff. Had a lot of fun. So again, tomorrow, check out Twitter. And I'll have tomorrow I'll have a better idea of when I go live. But I won't go live in the morning, just because I've got to go to the office early. And then I think Wednesday, then I'll start doing the 6:45. And I'll probably have to contain it to like 20. If I go at 6:45, I can probably still swing 30 minutes max. But unfortunately, I won't be able to catch Brad live on the Texas Card Dude channel because I'll be in the office and I can't listen to stuff. Although I guess I could bring I don't know. I won't be able to watch live. But that's what I had for today. Thanks for tuning in. Again, tomorrow night I'll go live sometime between 7 and 8 p.m. Central Time. I really have to tackle this card room. I'm getting stressed out. Oh, by the way, I also mentioned, I'll leave you with this. I mentioned that I may have some cool news coming. I was going to mention it on the 300th episode, which is right now. I don't want to say anything just yet. Nothing's been solidified, so I don't want to really come out and say anything until it's actually in the bag. So, but that will be known. Today's Monday, so Thursday is when I can possibly reveal something. So, unfortunately, I'm not going to say anything right now. Don't want to jinx anything. So, but I do have some possibly exciting news. And if it doesn't come out, I'll just come out and say, hey, things didn't work out. So, that's it. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Herman. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Matthew. Zach, enjoy mowing that lawn. Tell Porter happy birthday. I'll have to get a card in the mail. It'll be a belated birthday, but I've got some stuff for him. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Have a great Monday. Be safe out there. I'm going to grill some steaks tonight and drink a couple spotted cows. So it's like summer begins, but it's like summer vacation ending for me. It's like the exact opposite. Like summer, oh, this is the beginning of summer, and all the teachers get to go home for the summer. And me, I've spent the last year at home, and now I have to go back to the office. So enjoy it. Have a good day, and we'll talk tomorrow night.